Babylon the Great will be completely destroyed. America, as you know it, is going to become complete desolation. Though it tarry, wait for it, because surely come and not tarry. Apostle Tahar, live right now as we get into this.
Shalom, give me all praise to Yahweh, Shalom, 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 Kakada, Shalom, to 144,000 listeners, but the Shalom to all. I'm going to entitle the video, Many Nations Shall Come Against Babylon and Completely Destroy It. So, I don't have anything really set up. I mean, I set up the Apocrypha. I went to the GNT. I was going to go through 2nd Ezra 15, verse 30, maybe a couple of verses above that. Also in the King James Version of the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra chapter 15. Give me a second, let me just do this. Okay, 28th verse. That's at the 30th verse. This is taking place right now as we speak. 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and 2nd Ezra chapter 16. And then after that, go back to the 13th chapter. So this destruction could take place sometime at the end of this year, at the beginning of next year. Let's hope. But things are moving quick, and Nero's making things move quick. I don't know if you heard that the Prince Andrew got arrested in England, which shows you that the law is not necessarily slack in England, but here in America, the law is slack. The only person that got arrested, I guess famous person, was this guy Prince Andrew, which he's the younger brother of the King of England. And he got a statement from the King Charles, and he said, let the Lord take its course. So he's not condemning what they're doing. He's like for it. Meanwhile, here in the States, they're not going to arrest Nero. So the world sees that. See, everything that you do, the world sees it. The world sees. Nero made a statement when he first ran. He said, I can shoot somebody on 5th Avenue and get away with it. Well, guess what? He did things far worse than shooting somebody. He raped little girls, according to the Epstein files. He raped girls and probably hurt them too. He punched them. He's a sick man, a sick individual. But he's fulfilling prophecy. He's going to lead the world into this war. And they don't even know that they're fulfilling Bible prophecy. There's one news article, I'm not going to look for it, it was on my other computer. And, give me a second, let me get rid of this. Where Germany is building a massive army. Now, why do you think they're building this massive army? It's because they know they're going to go to war, being that Nero is in power. Germany doesn't possess missiles, but they may possess missiles by the time the destruction comes. We do know that, if you research it, that the only two NATO nations that possess ICBMs, or long-range missiles, one is France and the other is the UK. And the UK is going to be ashamed of America. That's what they're talking about. If they arrested the Prince Andrew, shouldn't others be arrested? Shouldn't it be mass arrest of elite people, government people, super rich people, CEOs of corporations, including presidents, politicians? Shouldn't it be a mass arrest? Because the files are up there. They said Nero's name was it's on there. At first they said 35,000, now they say it's 1 million. And he's saying, I never went down there, I don't know this guy.
Oprah Winfrey, untouchable.
That's why we keep talking about it. He wants to
Tom
go away.
Hanks.
The whole world sees that he's guilty. He looks guilty. So it's a good thing that Nero's in office.
Well, like everything else, though, Esau shall be uncovered. Like everything else, though, it looks like this premiere has already ended, and like everything else, we'll just have to tune in again tomorrow. Salakia for that. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakakadash. Double honors, the elders and apostles of the great millstone, who teaches truth and sincerity. As you know, that was Apostle Tahar. And like everything else, though, his live feed just ended. And we're looking at the downfall of Esau Edom and him being exposed, as we've been exposing him for quite some time, and yet he's telling on himself. I mean, these Epstein files that reveal everything that's been released. And, Nero's all over it. And like everything else, though, Nero is still in power. Everybody knows he's a fucking child molester, has been revealed by us first, the prophets. Said a lot in the first term of Nero, and yet in the second term, it's more than obvious that everybody in power and celebrities, both small and great, all of them are guilty of child molestation, of eating children and raping them and just doing everything unthinkable to a child before they kill them. And then they use hydrofluoric acid to get rid of the bodies, to burn the bodies. So it's never seen or heard from again. But if you should ever speak against them, then they'll bring up charges against you, like they did to Bill Cosby and etc. These are pedophiles in power. But all first grade kindergarten bullshit, as compared to those in even higher ranks like Donald Trump, will never ever see the light of day. But that's just it. Esau will be exposed in his time, and it's up to the Most High himself to punish him, and he will punish him. Guaranteed. The lake of fire is right around the corner. And we don't want to be caught up in this. This judgment's coming against all these Edomites, all these pedophiles in power. And, hey, you don't want to be caught among them. That's why we don't delight in things of Babylon. Sure, yeah, I mean, I watch movies, I've listened to music, I like certain things, but I don't like the fucking people. Can't stand any fucking one of them. Every fucking one of them is a fucking pedophile. And that's why the Most High is going to destroy this place once and for all. Law must take its course. King Charles responds to the arrest of former Prince Andrew, just as Apostle Tahar was going into. King Charles released his first public statement regarding Andrew's arrest. He said, "I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is the full fair..." And don't get me wrong, King Charles is definitely guilty of a lot of shit. But they let certain people fall and certain people stay in power. As this process continues, it will not be the right for me to comment further on this matter. Yeah, disclosure there. Official release from Royal Communications. So like everything else, though, Prince Andrew arrested. Now, because of what they found in the Epstein files. So, as the shit show continues, yet, at the same time, the economy is being destroyed with a partial government shutdown, but nonetheless, though, still crippling Babylon's economy. Tariffs paid by mid-sized U.S. firms tripled last year. New analysis from J.P. Morgan Institute shows. So like everything else, though, the fall of the tariffs and everything else, man, couldn't think of a better time. Tariffs paid by mid-sized U.S. businesses tripled over the course of last year. New research tied to one of Babylon's leading banks showed on Thursday more evidence that President Trump push to charge higher taxes against imports is causing economic disruption. You should see the price of everything, especially for the small guy. Research doesn't say how the additional costs are flowing through the economy, but like everything else, everything's impacted by Trump's tariffs. You couldn't think of a better time, better moment, right? And like everything else, Russia is pounding the shit out of Kiev, out of Ukraine, as this proxy war continues. So look at the war in the
As
EU.
expected, the first day of peace talks in Geneva ended without any major breakthroughs. According to some Western
But I thought you could end in
Moscow has
24
adopted
hours.
a harder line against Kiev.
Within hours.
The return of Vladimir Medinsky as head of the Russian delegation, replacing GRU Chief General Igor Kostyukov, indicates that the negotiations have shifted from military issues to broader political demands. Medinsky is an aide to the president known for his uncompromising rhetoric. Russian military analysts have linked this decision to the recent assassination attempt on General Alexiev, the deputy of Kostyukov. Meanwhile, 3 air hospital planes were spotted at the Rzeszów airport in Poland. According to flight plans, the Cessna 550 Citation Bravo of the Austrian Rescue Service Tyrol Air Ambulance will fly to Salzburg, Austria. Aerodienst GmbH's Dornier Do-328 Jet 310 will fly to Hamburg. SAS's Boeing 737 is still on standby, but a nighttime flight to Scandinavia cannot be ruled out. These aircraft are intended to evacuate NATO military advisors or foreign mercenaries operating in Ukraine. The reported Russian strike on the San Remo restaurant in Sumy on February 17th may be related. According to unconfirmed information, the site was being used for a gathering of foreign personnel working with the Ukrainian military. Beyond these tactical strikes, the broader Russian campaign against Ukraine's energy infrastructure is also showing results. The prolonged lack of heat and light in their homes, coupled with their dissatisfaction with the authorities' actions, is increasing social tension among Ukrainian citizens. On February 17th, citizens reportedly blocked streets in several districts of Odessa. The protesters' main demand was the restoration of vital infrastructure. On the military front, pressure is also mounting. The systematic expansion of bridgeheads in northern Ukraine continues. On February 18th, Russian troops occupied Kharkivka, which is located east of Gudkov in the Sumy region. A few days earlier, Komorivka and the adjacent border area were captured. At least 9 similar bridgeheads have been noted along the entire northern border. It appears that Russia has finally begun implementing its previously announced security zone along the border with Ukraine. It should be noted that Ukrainian territorial defense brigades should protect border areas. According to reports on February 17th, Russian units achieved tactical successes northwest of Pokrovsk. Assault groups advanced in the Grishino area. There have been no significant changes to the rest of the front line over the past day. Positional battles have been reported along the entire line of contact. It is possible that both sides have taken a brief operational pause to demonstrate the good intentions to the U.S. during negotiations.
So that's what's going on over there, right? As this proxy war continues. And like everything else, though, Tucker Carlson detained in the Israeli state because, they got to give you a show. They got to give you a show, to make it look like certain people oppose it. Now, Tucker Carlson on the Turning Point, right? The alternative Stupid Bowl halftime show, right? They got to make it look like that he's trying to fight against. It's all a shit show, like Fox News, got to make it look like, this person, does a little bit of things outside of Fox News, because he was from Fox News, but they got to make it look like, okay, he's willing to take on certain things. And by the way, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone have already met with Tucker Carlson before he's come to the camp, and like everything else, though, he was inquiring, and Apostle Tahar already knew what he was going to do before he did it, right? Because everybody knows who this guy is, but like everything else, though, they got to give you a show, right? Tucker Carlson, interrogated in the Israeli state, has passports seized after interviewing U.S. ambassador. Conservative journalists condemned Israeli influence in D.C., says Israeli security took his whole team in for questioning. Don't you dare speak against them small hats. Bad things happen to you. Carlson, ally of President Trump, with whom he often has disagreements on foreign policy, traveled to the Israeli state on Wednesday for a sit-down with Huckabee. Huckabee stated that Zionists have divine right to colonize Palestinian land and denies Palestinian national identity. Incidents of harassment targeting Christians, including spitting, physical intimidation, damage to property, including cemeteries and disruption of services, because guess what? These Palestinians, a lot of them claim Christianity. They don't just claim Islam. So, like everything else, they don't want you to know about that because, of course, Christians are a minority in those places. And the Israeli state is definitely, oh, no, shame, because he spoke against him. Tucker Carlson named anti-Semitic of the year for opposing Israeli genocide against Gaza. So, yeah, gotta give that show, man. Gotta give it a show, man. It's the big show. Israeli army hits Gaza Strip with airstrikes, artillery shelling on the second day of Ramadan, which Ramadan is the Islamic version of the Passover, It's no coincidence that Islam echoes a lot of things that we Israelites taught, and continue to some of their values, but they took it right from us. I mean, is that not what they do, is imitate us? Edomites imitate us all the time, so why wouldn't Islam and everything else imitate us, right? Because Ramadan is supposed to be a fast, which we do a fast during the, which is a, banning of all yeast. But they do like a 30-day fast, I think it is, I think that after each day, though, they do, drink water and eat food, and then they just do it again for the next 24 hours, going the whole day without. I think that's how they do it, kind of like Day of Atonement. Pretty sure that's how Ramadan is. Because nobody could really go 30 days without eating or drinking water, But they try. They try because they got to make an image of it, right? Israeli army launched 3 intense airstrikes and heavy artillery shelling the Gaza Strip on Thursday on the second day of Muslim fasting month of Ramadan. So, like I said, I don't think they fast for a whole 30 days. I believe that at the end of each day, when it becomes dawn, then they eat, and then they go another day without, and that's how they're able to do that for 30 days. Israeli jets carried out heavy airstrikes against eastern neighborhoods of Gaza City in the north, alongside artillery shelling in the surrounding areas. Israeli terrorists fired illumination flares at the Shoutout neighborhood in eastern Gaza City in the southern cities of Khan Yunis and Rafah. Witnesses report at least 2 Israeli air attacks against eastern areas under Israeli military control. So, like everything else, though, they won't call it a violation of ceasefire, but it is. But who's going to hold them accountable? You think Trump's going to hold them accountable? Fuck no. Israeli state dictating terms to the U.S. Turkish professor. D.C. is following the Zionist state's demands against Iran and the West Asia as a whole, Hassan Yonal has told RT. Well, like everything else, though, we know that this is the commander of Donald Trump. Israeli effectively dictating U.S. foreign policy. Hassan Yonal, who teaches at Muscat University in Ankara, spoke to RT's Rick Sanchez this week about what he described as a highly unusual power imbalance between the Israeli state and the U.S. We are living in a world where a small country like the Israeli state dictates terms to a superpower like the United States on anything, everything, particularly anything pertaining to the Israeli state and to West Asia. He said, calling the situation totally unacceptable. And everybody else sees that, and we'll play a little bit of that, because this was on Rick Sanchez the other night. We'll play some of it. I'm not going to play all 48 minutes, obviously.
All right, here's what you need to know about today. If you want to be on TikTok, you need to know the rules, the new rules. And yes, they're Israel's rules. Volodymyr Zelensky goes on a wild rant at the Munich Security Conference. It's vulgar, it's kind of crazy, and you're going to be able to hear it. And then Jeremy Corbyn has a bit of a go at it as well. He had already told The Guardian that NATO caused the war in Ukraine, and wait till you hear what he's also saying about Boris Johnson. This is the Sanchez effect. Let's do this. Hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and I'm going to let you know that we're following a developing story right now. There is a conference that is taking place where they are negotiating, hopefully, what will be the resolution or the end to this war in Ukraine. There's the negotiator for Russia, Mr. Medinsky.
Okay,
and
like I said
stories about Palestinian civilians and about workers and about volunteers and reporters and doctors and nurses all being slaughtered. In some cases, video of this stuff. So what happens to TikTok? It is shut down. Is that what I think? No. That's what U.S. presidential candidate Mitt Romney admits. Here, listen to him.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I know that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
There it is. We had to shut it down, TikTok that is, because too many people there were criticizing Israel and defending Palestinians. That's why we shut it down. But it gets worse, really, because you have to ask them, okay, so what happens next? I'll tell you what happens next. Billionaires in the United States with ties to the Israeli government are mandated then by Netanyahu himself with the task of buying TikTok, which they do. Why? To make it impossible for people to use that powerful platform to criticize Israel. Am I just making this up? Am I just saying this? No. The new CEO of TikTok admits this. Here he is.
We made a change to designate the use of the term Zionist as a proxy for a protected attribute as hate speech. So if somebody were to use Zionist, of course you can use it in the sense of you're a proud Zionist.
And we said it before that Zionists would be banned.
Degrading somebody, calling somebody a Zionist as a dirty name, then that gets designated as hate speech to be moderated against. We also have, I think, over 24 Jewish organizations that are constantly feeding us intelligence and information.
It's crazy, isn't it? The notion that people who criticize a country or an ideology or simply have a different opinion should be shut down, banned, or removed took center stage this week. Again, this time it's a bizarre rant from none other than Volodymyr Zelensky. This is absolutely crazy. But he says it. Here it is.
Europeans made a lot, but didn't put still sanctions on nuclear energy of Russians, on Rosatom, on people, on their relatives, on their children, which live in Europe, which live in the United States, which study in the universities of Europe, which have real estate in the United States. So they have a lot of real estate. They have children, relatives everywhere. Away to Russia. Go home.
Yeah, that's a really bad word. He said the F word. He said the F word. Then he added it with F away. And my first reaction when I heard him say this is, first of all, what? What's he talking about? But when you listen carefully, you can hear what he's suggesting. He's suggesting the removal of all Russian immigrants in America, and Europe as well, by the way, no matter how long they have been there, including their children and their families, if they don't agree with him, with Volodymyr Zelensky and the Ukrainian point of view. Here, listen.
And not to mention those small hats are controlling Ukraine as well. But there's more. And Esau's being exposed. It's all part of it. Iran will be finding out over the next 10 days, Trump says, but asserts good talks. So Trump is still posturing threats against Iran. So we're going to see this around the corner.
Nobody could have signed. You would have had that threat. Nobody could have had. You couldn't have had peace in the Middle East. And now we may have to take it a step further. Or
yeah, there's peace, all right.
Make a deal with, you're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days.
You're going to see a piece of missiles that are going to destroy them fucking carriers.
Nothing is impossible.
Yeah, exactly. You can see a piece of them fucking missiles destroying them fucking goddamn aircraft carriers, and I can't wait to see them fucking destroyed. And like everything else, though, you know, Stu Peters' network goes into it a little bit. So, as he gets into these things, right, you know, a little bit of ranting. It's hilarious because, like everything else, though, yeah, they said they was going to have a war with Iran within the next couple months, and then we may be seeing it a few weeks from now.
Welcome to the Stu Peters Show. Sitting in tonight for Stu, I'm Frankie Stocks, the host of the Base Report here on the Stu Peters Network. Stu is down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico at Anarchapulco. He's going to be checking in with us live here tonight, just like he has throughout this week. We're at that midway point. It's Wednesday. The news cycle is starting to take form. There is a whole lot to talk about. We've got a few news stories teed up here to go over, including the latest out of the Middle East, where the United States is on the cusp of war with Iran, not on behalf of the American people, not at the behest of the American people, but on behalf of and at the behest of Israel. This war will not serve American interests. This war will only serve Israeli interests, greater Israel ambitions. They are filling in that map. They are getting rid of the opposition. And this has the potential to ensnare multiple other countries and come at great cost to the United States. There's been a lot of updates, a lot of action revolving around this entire Iran situation. This is a war that the neocons, that the Zionists, that the military-industrial complex have been begging for, have been demanding for decades. And now it looks like we are on the brink of it happening. We will talk about that here tonight. We've got a couple of other stories that I want to touch on right off the top of the show, and I'm going to start with something I've been talking about a lot over on the Base Report, something I've been talking about a lot here on the Stu Peters Show when I come in for my Base Report segments, and that is the never-ending attacks on the Second Amendment rights of American citizens. We've got never-ending wars abroad, and we've got never-ending attacks on our Second Amendment rights here at home. It's not just the Second Amendment for that,
because they're taken away with all these fake shootings.
The entire Constitution, but the First and Second Amendment are coming under attack with a special vitriol, and that is because muzzling the American people and disarming the American people, these are two major steps in softening the target and silencing us.
So like everything else,
over Virginia, much like we have an occupied Washington, D.C. regime ruling over this entire country. But they're attacking the Second Amendment in all ways, shapes, and forms. If you can't push them out, if it's too rigged, if it's too controlled, then the citizenry has the means, has the ability, constitutionally speaking, to take matters into our own hands.
And they're going to try to take it back.
He has all these fake conversations with David Duke. I mean, it was like I always thought that it was defamatory. You know, there should have been a lawsuit. There's been a lawsuit for less. Spike Lee
Yep,
propped up by all
because
these
Trump
religious people.
does hang out with the
Let's fight 'em with their own weapon here,
KKK.
right?
That's a
I always
well-known.
thought, like, hey, this was like a defamation case waiting to happen. They had this entirely fake storyline, making it look like David Duke ordered some kind of bombing that blew up a black lady, and it never happened. But this is the kind of anti-white filth by the American people.
That's Captain Kirk.
The cost of human life, the cost of economic discomfort, where you're going to the gas pump, waiting for the U.S. to get Iran out of the way.
There
So
it
they
is.
can then steamroll the rest of the Middle East and fill in their map of Greater Israel. And the U.S. will bear the cost of human life, the financial cost of
The
all
blood spill.
of all of it. Now look, on this same topic here, the Trump administration, they're now coming back out, and I think this is an indication of how close we are and how much they're looking for any kind of justification to throw in the faces of the American people and say, hey, look, this is why we're at war with Iran. It's not for Israel, it's for this reason. We're doing it for you, we're doing it for our country. And now they're bringing back this old line that Iran is trying to assassinate Trump. Iran would be crazy to try to assassinate Trump. It's not Iran, it's Mossad. It's not Iran, it's just all fake in the first place. But Trump is saying this once again, as recently as this week. And of course he says we'll obliterate Iran, we'll wipe them off the map. Not just if they kill him, but if they try. All the government has to do is tell us, hey, they tried, now we're going to obliterate Iran. But we've got a clip teed up here of Trump saying exactly that. Let's go ahead and roll it.
It's Iran and their Nazis who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out so long.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why, lack of intelligence perhaps. But he never said it. If that happens to a leader, or close to a leader, frankly, if you have other people involved also, you would call for total obliteration of a state that did it. That would include Iran. So exciting.
Okay, so my question here is, when are we going to obliterate Israel for killing President John F. Kennedy? If we obliterate countries in response to them killing our president,
right?
then when are we going to obliterate Israel? But Israel doesn't get obliterated. Israel gets wars. Israel gets American deaths on their behalf. They get rewarded with territory.
And like everything else, the least flock shall draw them out, you know? And you can see shameful stealing on Esau Edom coming from their own, man. You know, look, man, you know, we're tired of this favoritism. We're tired of spilling the blood for the Israeli state when, like, nothing else is just continuous wars. Doesn't benefit the people, but they're speaking out against, right? I shall set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, right? You know, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it unfold. You know, these scriptures are coming to life. Iran closes large ports of its airspace ahead of missile drills. So like everything else, though, they're conducting missile drills because they know war is imminent. Iran's Civil Aviation Authority issued an official notice to pilots on Wednesday announcing the closure of large sections of the country's airspace. Notice said the course was to allow a planned missile launch exercise tomorrow. Specified danger zones where flying will be completely banned due to military activity. This move caused serious concern among international airlines, many of which have already begun rerouting flights. And you already know how popular Iran Air is. You know, they're one of the best airline companies to West Asia, right? So Iran Air has to change a lot of things right now. Russia and China join Iran for Navy drills in the Strait of Hormuz. So like everything else, though, you know, they're also being brought out, right? Russia officials said the drills are part of expanded BRICS coordination amid massive U.S. military buildup in the region. So, you know, they're going to be a guard unto them, but they're also going to be supplying them with the weapons and the missiles to sink such ships and such operations. And don't forget S-400 systems, etc., to even intercept the air attacks. Russian and Chinese Navy forces Chinese navies joined Iranian forces in the Strait of Hormuz for joint naval drills on 17th of February as part of the Maritime Security Belt 2026 military exercises. So, like everything else, so you can see this here. They're preparing for war. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I was sent to judge all the nations round about. We're seeing it. But is this it? I believe this is leading towards it. I believe that there's going to be some events this year leading towards it. The final destruction comes after they mandate the MOTB. Salakia for the pixels. You already know how videos play when you're playing them live. That's why I use VLC player, but this one wasn't on it. So this was on Rupley. As you can see though, they're preparing, they're ready. Trump weighing plan to kill Iranian leaders. So like everything else, like he did in 2020, and like the Israeli state just did last year before they actually launched the attack, they assassinated many of their leaders. U.S. President has been briefed on several strike options as tensions mount in West Asia. U.S. President Trump is weighing in on the possibility of striking Iranian leadership as an attempt to bring about regime change. According to the report, Trump received several briefings on strike options, including potential weeks-long air campaign, which we heard about, to kill scores of Iranian political and military leaders, with the end goal of toppling the government. Other options reportedly focus on nuclear and missile sites. And I believe this is not going to go the way that they plan it, and I believe that some ships are going to be sunk. You know, leading towards that, so that way everybody will be, support the war! War, it's the ball! You know, so that way they can have their war. You know, they get the people to support it easily when they see troops killed. Trump administration close to launching major attack against Iran as it continues massive buildup of military forces in West Asia. Sources told Ravid that potential U.S. attack against Iran would be likely a massive multi-week operation, much bigger than the operation to abduct Venezuela President Maduro. They said it would also be much broader in scope of the 12-day U.S.-Israeli war against Iran that was launched in June 2025. So they're going to have this thing for weeks long. And like everything else, though, is that the Third World War? No, but it's getting closer to it. And you're going to see a lot of shit happen. A lot of people are going to die very soon. And like everything else, though, the economy, the money to fund this war and all that, that'll be an excuse as to why the economy is busting, why they have to they have to usher in the new digital dollar because all the money is gone for the war. One security officer killed, another wounded in ISIS attack against eastern Syria. Well, like everything else, though, well, we know ISIS was set free by the new government there, which shows you the Hayat al-Sham and ISIS are the same thing. ISIS on Thursday claimed responsibility for an attack that killed a Syrian government security officer and wounded another in eastern Syria, making an escalation in the group's attacks against the country's new leadership. And of course, like everything else, though, they have to kill officials. They have to kill officials so that way it looks like Hayat al-Sham is no longer a terrorist group, but are part of the good guys now. You know, they're going to help the coalition to go after ISIS. U.S. military said on the 13th of February that it completed a mission to transfer 5,700 ISIS members from Syria prisons to Iraq. This came after government force seized swaths of northeast from Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic forces, including several jails holding ISIS fighters. ISIS considers Syrian President al-Jilani, the former al-Qaeda leader, main enemy and has repeatedly labeled him an apostate in its publications. But so supposedly ISIS don't like him anymore because he's a good guy now. You believe that? Yeah, right. That's what a fool believes is what he sees. But only a wise man has the power to reason away. Like the old song goes, right? You know, and we're the wise men. We're the wise men. I pray we're part of the hopeful elect, the wise men. Because we've been given insight to the prophecy that's happening. And like everything else, so Magog is going to be entering the war. As you already know, they're in joint drills. So like everything else, though, you know, we see that, you know, what's going to happen is eventually Russia's going to get involved, and Russia's going to come in. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 9. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands that are, and many people with thee. Meaning that they're going to come and they're going to get involved. Just like you saw in Syria in 2014 when they said they would go after ISIS. Well, this time they're going to get involved and come after those Israelis behind everything. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, it shall also come to pass that at the same time things shall come into thy mind, thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, which is a reference to both the Israeli state and Babylon. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, having neither bars nor gates. To take a spoil and take a prey, to turn thy hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that have gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goats that dwell in the midst of the land. So like everything else though, they're going to come up against the whole coalition, right? Remember the whole coalition of teams and all that? Well, they're going to come up against it. And like everything else though, we're seeing that forming. And this will happen in our lifetime. We're not too far away from it. We're going to see a lot of war this year, leading up to the Third World War that comes quickly, which ends in nuclear destruction. And we're going to see them usher in the MOTB. We already know that it's in their legislation to have the thing going by January. Now we're hastening for this thing to speed up, because we're sighing and crying for the abominations there. We pray we're part of the hopeful elect that'll be delivered. It's coming in our lifetime. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that I want to say Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadosh, Wa Abba Babal. Brakatum, Jehovah elect, Shalom.